Mr. Speaker, I beg to second and I confirm and fortify what the leader of opposition has said. Majority.
Opposition.
You are opposition. Sam Cock. Yes. Yes. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority has expounded on Article 270 as it relates to the meaning of political parties. Mr. Speaker, I confirm that my committee looked into this and we found that Article 260 reposes the ascription of meaning to registration through Article 92. If you look at the subheading of Article 292, it speaks for itself. Registration on political parties. Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for, among other things, the management of political parties. So a definition, therefore, the definition is therefore reposed. It is reposed to registration. Now the registration that has ascribed meaning is the bill now. The bill that is before this House is the one under clause 2. The bill, the Politicals Bills Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. Speaker, if you can protect me from this hekura. Yeah? I don't know what type of government they would have. The government they aspire to have. A government of disorder and everything. Mr. Speaker, the bill here is going to remove, to erase any the overlapping mandates between IBC and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties to enhance effective management of political parties and define the role of the Registrar of the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties regarding independent candidates, and to implement the Constitution, fully implement the Constitution to address the gaps identified in the Office of the Registrar. For example, the meaning of what a political party, a coalition party is. Mr. Speaker, coalitions is the in thing now in the world. If you look at Germany today, it is a coalition of several political parties. India, the biggest democracy in the Commonwealth. The government today of Modi government has 7 political parties in his coalition. It is a coalition government. Mr. Speaker, I know it is everywhere. Mr. Speaker, I know it is choreographed. These people, Muragara and Songkok, are choreographing us a way of disrupting everybody who speaks here so that they can buy time. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to provide, as I said, proper definition of what a political party and a coalition is. It also seeks to define party nominations, provide for party nominations to differentiate same from registration of candidates in elections. It also seeks rules of political parties as required under Article 292, and also registration of coalitions and submission of pre-election agreements. Mr. Speaker, parties as they start today are a bit, they are not properly defined. So you need now to define the ideology and the slogans. We also need to have timelines for reservations of names, symbols, colors, lifespan, and provisional of registration, streamlining the resignation, expulsion of members, and deeming of resignation, including the organ of thus you shall do it. The disbursement, Mr. Speaker, if you can protect me from this hecklers,
there cannot be any heckling member.
The regulation.
Members can only consult a little higher. So what the most
they cannot
important thing
be
is
the hecklers.
You summarize and we are fine.
Mr. Speaker, we also need to delete the constitutional provisions from the Act, including Section 22(3) that attempts to introduce a new ground on how a vacancy arises in Parliament of County Assemblies. So, in effect, this is a bill that we will have to go to the other house. It also needs to introduce alternative forms of publications for... Mr. Speaker, lastly, I need you to summarize and say, these bills seeks to address overlapping of mandates, the enhancement of effective management of parties, the implementation of the Constitution, including Articles 82, 90, 2, 103, to address the gaps identified in execution of the office of the mandate, lessons learned from experiences to address needs of Kenyans as drawn from stakeholder engagements, to address domestic and international jurisprudence, which we have drawn from Katiba Institute. So, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to second.
And I propose the question, which is the Political Parties Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2021, be now read a second time. Leader Minority.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take the shortest time possible. Even though I have 15 minutes, I'll take a third of that. Mr. Speaker, first I want to address myself the question of whether, when we expand the definition of a political party, that infringes on the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I would want to invite those who are arguing like that to look at Article 92 and see that we were required to bring clarity in terms of defining what a political party means. So that is number one, Mr. Speaker. Number two, those who are complaining about this bill, I don't know whether they have taken time to read it and understand the provisions of Clause 13, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under Clause 13, you will realize that presently, if for whatever reason, registrar deregisters or suspends a political party, Mr. Speaker, the only people who are saved is a member of parliament and members of county assemblies. The president, if elected on that party that is being deregistered, or the deputy president are not protected. So, Mr. Speaker, the provisions of under Clause 13 now protects also the president and the deputy president and even the governors. Anybody elected on a political party that has been deregistered or suspended would continue serving in the office, something that is not keyword in the current law as we have it today. Mr. Speaker, those of us who are making noise about these amendments should understand that there is no process of disciplining a party member as it is today. This law provides a clear mechanism and details on how due process of disciplining a member will be taken. And it is of benefit to some of us who are making noise here, Mr. Speaker, because Mr. Speaker, we require this law to be clear on what process would be followed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my second last remark is as follows. Mr. Speaker, as it is today, the political parties' funds, there is no clear provision on how to divide it to parties which form coalition. And Mr. Speaker, looking forward, Mr. Speaker, how I wish that those members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, these members, if they are the numbers, we have been told about 150 members supporting a particular cause. Mr. Speaker, you can see when we come to the floor of this House, the members are hardly 20, and that is why they are making noise, because they know they don't have the capacity, they don't have the numbers, they don't have even intellectual capacity to argue their case, and therefore they will continue making noise. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the provisions of this bill, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that now even those political parties which don't have the numbers in the House but have elected leaders will benefit from political parties' funds. So, Mr. Speaker, let me just conclude. That, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other side of the political divide, who have been boasting of numbers in the streets, who have been talking of 150 members, today we want to see where are those 150 members. So instead of making noise, instead of shouting like Alice Wahome is shouting as if she's in a marketplace, Alice Wahome should tell us where there are 150 members that they have been boasting around, that they have 150 members and they have only 20-25 members. Okay. If you don't have numbers, don't waste our time. Don't waste our time. We have come here to debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.